Hello, and welcome to another installment of the Google Analytics 4 training series. Today we'll be covering server-side data ingestion. My name is Breen Baker. I'm a PM on the Google Analytics team, and we'll be joined later by Kevin Lamb, who is another Google Analytics PM. Before we get going, I just wanted to review with everyone that this is one training as a part of a broader training series with Google Analytics PMs. Training from the people who built the product. We're doing these to help you understand and better set up your Google Analytics 4 properties and offering step-by-step guidance and recommendations, again, from the people who built the product. Today, we're going to be covering server-side data ingestion, but specifically data import and measurement protocol. But starting first with an introduction, why do we have server-side data collection? Why is this even a topic we're talking about? And real quick, before I get there, a call out to say that there's actually two mechanisms of collecting data: server-side collection, which we're covering today, and then SDK data collection. There's a different training available for SDK real-time data collection. And you'll see as we go through these slides why server-side is important, but why it also relates to SDK collection. So I recommend all of you also take a look at that one. So what is server-side data collection? As I said before, we're going to go over data import and measurement protocol. But what are data import and measurement protocol? Data import is a UI-based solution to import data, both events as well as data that can be used to widen existing parameters that were collected previously with events in a UI so that a marketer can actually action that without the need for additional development resources. Measurement protocol, on the other hand, is an additional mechanism to programmatically collect data. So for this, you probably would require some development resources, but there are some advantages to doing it that way in terms of speed and actionability. So why did we build these solutions? Well, sometimes the data is just not available. It's either locked up in a third-party system, it maybe isn't connected to the internet at all, or maybe there isn't a supported solution for it. So examples would be, legacy databases or sometimes third-party partners cannot give you their data in real time, cannot integrate perhaps with the app or with the website to be able to collect that data along with the original event. So you would use measurement protocol or data import to enhance and augment those events. At other times, let's say there's a sales call. It's literally happening on a telephone and that salesperson is entering in some additional detail about the user that they're talking to and about the sale they're trying to get to in some third-party system. Again, that's not information that's available at some interaction point on an app or a website. So that's information, either events or, again, augmented data to widen existing data collected in an event. That's going to have to be done after the fact. Lastly, we have SDKs for web, iOS, and Android. We don't have SDKs for every possible device that you might want to collect data from. And so for those solutions, measurement protocol can come in and kind of fulfill some of those needs. I would be chagrined if I didn't repeat what my other PM made me promise I would say, though, that measurement protocol itself is not an SDK. Measurement protocol should not be used to replace what you would typically expect coming out of our Android or iOS SDKs, and we'll get into that a little bit more. So main supported use cases are here. We've developed these two sets of systems to import real-time event data via some unsupported IoT device. So just like I ended with before, sometimes there's a device that you want to collect some additional data from. It does not have a supported SDK, so you would use measurement protocol or perhaps data import for that use case. The other is for offline conversions. Again, the conversion might happen because of a telephone call. It might happen because a user comes into a brick and mortar store, completes something like a large purchase, something like a car or something like that, and it's going to happen offline. So that could be imported later and complete that sales cycle. Importing ad cost data. So cost data by nature isn't known when the ad brings the user to the website or to the app. That is data that necessarily needs to be joined after the fact. Google's integrations do this automatically. So if you're using Google Ads, this just happens for you. But if you're using another system, if you're using a third-party advertising system and you have some cost that isn't available to Google, then you're going to need to import that after the fact as well. And then lastly, e-commerce item metadata. If you've looked at the e-commerce schema in Google Analytics 4, you'll see that it's very expressive, but it also asks for a lot of data to be sent all at once at time of collection. Some of our users don't like that route because their end users have particularly low bandwidth devices or low power consumption devices, and so don't want to send all of that data, want to reduce the packet size that they're sending to Google Analytics. So they would send just the item ID and then upload the name, the category, the brand. And what that does is that makes that data available to us in the processing layer such that it appears as though you did collect it in real time. So some of our clients have been using that mechanism to reduce the size of data that they collect, but still get all of the benefit of that additional metadata. What are these solutions not intended for? So I hate to hit you with the caution tape, but there are some things to bring your attention to so that you don't run into kind of classic pitfalls. One I already mentioned, and that is that data import and measurement protocol are not designed for and actually cannot replace our SDKs. Measurement protocol and data import cannot collect every field that our SDKs can collect, and we'll get to that in point D, one of those points. But for that reason, you should not expect measurement protocol or data import to be a replacement for any of these SDKs or able to deliver the same functionality. Because of that, you also should not collect all data for a given user just from one of these solutions. Again, the reason being these solutions cannot collect all of the important data that you might want to collect, and therefore you wouldn't have it available for that given user if all you did was collect data from measurement protocol. Specifically, and again, maybe I'll jump, to point D, it does not collect Google signals. So if you want to action an audience or a conversion from these pipelines, we do need some connection with our SDKs. This user needs to have interacted with some app or website of yours. From that point, we would have the signals where we could activate that user in our ad solutions. But if I'm only getting all of my data from measurement protocol or data import, then I'm not going to have that Google signal, and it's only going to be able to be used for behavioral reasons. Still useful, but not the complete solution. So jumping back up to point C, it also doesn't enhance kind of the historical event collection. I can't collect any historical data beyond the widely limiting 72-hour limit. That's the same limit as our SDKs. There's no difference with respect to data import or measurement protocol here. I can only load events that are up to 72 hours old. And then lastly, data import specifically does not cover real-time data ingestion. That solution was built for regular, more like daily event ingestion, but not real-time. So if it's important to get activation going in real time, then we would say use measurement protocol, or better yet, use the SDKs if you can do that. Those are built for real-time solutions and would get the event in for near immediate activation. Okay, so now moving on to data import, a very specific tool, one of the two we'll go over today. Data import, as I just said, is a tool to schedule regular event ingestion into Google Analytics 4. Specifically, it covers 4 use cases, but as you can see, it does not cover all of the use cases that our SDKs and measurement protocol are designed to use. Does not do real time. It does not collect Google signals. And based on which import type you have, would be restricted to something like cost or item import versus something like offline event import. So specifically, let's go over those use cases. Cost data. Cost data is not available in real time, as I went over before. So if you're using any third-party tool and you want to compare Google cost with that third-party tool cost, you'll need to import cost data after the fact. This data is able to be widened retroactively, historically, so you do not have to enter this data within the 72 hours, and that's kind of a brief exception to the point that I made before, because we actually do this widening at query time when we're loading the report. I might also want to upload item data, also went over this before. I might do this because I'm, again, just collecting the ID. I might also want to do this because maybe some of my data has updated over time. I have a better representation, a better categorization of the items that we're reporting on, and I want to update all of my historical data and my data going forward to that new setup. So just like cost data, this is retroactively applied and can just be used to kind of more or less fix any improper classification or update any legacy classification that you might have. The third use case, which is one of the most popular, is importing offline user data. So again, like the example I went over before, we might have a salesperson working offline, maybe having interactions in a brick and mortar store or over the phone, would have access to user data that cannot be collected in real time by one of our SDKs. Importing this data after the fact can make sure that that user is properly classified in an audience, which would then be activated to get them to come back, to engage, to convert, etc. So like I said, yeah, that's a very popular one and is used to kind of import that non-real-time user data that is only available to people like our sales teams and to systems like CRMs. And then lastly, if I do want to import offline event data on a regular basis and I have no programmatic support to do that, either via the SDK or measurement protocol, then we do have a UI to enable you to ingest those events. I would say, though, if you do have development resources and you would like to ingest events, you do get additional benefits of that real-time support by using measurement protocol or an SDK. So we always advise you to go there first when importing offline events and to use data import only when you can't use one of those other solutions. And then lastly, again, when to use data import, it's really when you can't use the SDK or measurement protocol. Like I think I've said a few times, data import is not real time and doesn't collect all of the fields that our SDK can collect. So whenever you can use the SDK to collect the event or measurement protocol, it's typically advised for the client to do that. All right, now let's jump over into a walkthrough and I can show you how this actually looks in our UI. Okay, here you can see a test file. This is the test that I'm going to upload. I'm not going to upload real data. I'm not even going to upload it into a real property. This is just to show kind of the steps to get it done. I'm going to upload some cost data. It's a very common upload type for us, so let's get everybody used to it. In this file, I'm going to have a number of columns that are required, such as the campaign ID, name, source, medium, and date. And then I'm going to have some optional metrics that I can upload. So this is impressions, clicks, and cost. So I'm going to jump over into the UI and we'll actually upload this file. Okay, so now you can see I'm in the Google Analytics 4 UI. You can see from the left navigation that I'm in the data import section. There's a number of configurations that's already been created here, but we're going to go ahead and create a new one from scratch. So I'll click the button to create a new data source. Let's go ahead and give it a silly name, like test. Cost is already selected for me. That's great. That's the one I wanted anyway. You can see I have the choice of selecting a manual CSV upload or scheduling an SFTP upload. In this case, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to upload a manual CSV, but you can see that we have the ability to select a server, to set the frequency of how often I want these things, this data to be pulled, and actually which hour of the day we want this to start. So you can kind of order and schedule these things so that they can be done right after something is meant to arrive or be ready to upload. Well, let's go back to CSV upload just for now. I'll click upload a CSV. I'll find my template file. In this case, it's a CSV, but it's the same exact file we were looking at in the spreadsheet. I'll click next. And at this point, the Google Analytics 4 system is actually going to load the first few rows from the import file. It's going to do that so that I can help map the right data to the right field. So here you can see there's a number of fields that are pre-checked for me. I cannot uncheck these. These are required fields for the upload to work. And then I have a number of optional fields. These are in this case, the metrics that I want to upload for cost, but for another upload type might be the user property that I want to upload, or maybe the item category. As I go through the list, I'm able to see the columns that were detected in the file that I'm asking to upload. So here you can see just the same columns that we saw before in the spreadsheet: campaign name, source, medium, date, etc. So I'll go ahead and just click through and make sure that I'm mapping the right field to ultimately the right place. You can see I already made a mistake. So I'll go back and fix that. There we go. And select the name. We'll select the date. And then I can choose any number of these optional fields to upload. So let's just go ahead and click all of them just to show you. Now, what you're seeing coming off to the right is actually from those first few rows, just a sample of the values. This is to help you kind of quality assure that you have selected the right field. That's how I noticed that I had done it improperly and kind of fixed myself. Once you're comfortable that you've selected the proper mapping, you'll go ahead and come up into the upper right and click the big blue import button. I'm actually not going to do that right now because there's no point in doing that, but this is basically how it works. So before we finish, I wanted to go over a few important details around data import, some that we've mentioned before, others that we haven't. One is the data import types. So we offer 4 different types of data import: cost import, item import, user import on both the client ID or the app instance ID as well as the user ID, and then offline event import. Using all of these, you can actually do a lot. There's a lot of extensibility just within this framework. But of course, remember the caveats that I said around real-time support and how fast you want to action that data and use the right solution for your use case. Quality stats. Here's another aspect of data import that we didn't mention. With every load, so not just every configuration created, but every attempt at loading data, Google Analytics 4 will give you, our clients, 2 stats that go along with that: percent imported and match rate. Percent imported is the number of rows that's successfully imported divided by the number of rows you attempted to import. So let's say I'm uploading a file that has 100 rows that I would like to see imported into Google Analytics 4, and there were 10 errors on 10 of those rows, and they did not upload. My import percentage would be 90%. It'd be telling me that 90% of the data I uploaded did upload, 10% did not. We will also give you a few of those errors so that you can fix that data and upload it again. Match rate shows of those rows that were successfully imported, how many of them have keys and were found in the last 30 days. So basically, it's a stat that helps you understand the relevance of the data that you uploaded. For all the data that you uploaded, how many are going to be widened? How many are going to be affected within the last 30 days? Depending on your use case, you might expect that to be 100%. You might expect that to be lower, but you can use that as a gauge for how effective it is at augmenting the reports that you're currently looking at. And then lastly, viewing the data, and there's actually 2 subpoints here. One is that there's no special place to see this data. You don't go to the data import report after uploading data here. You don't even go to a special analyses type or any sort of special place. Once the data is uploaded, the fields that are uploaded into are generally available anywhere that information was already available. So for item data, wherever I can select the category, I should expect the category to represent the data that I uploaded in data import. Whenever I go to the non-Google cost report, I should expect my cost data to show up there automatically. And whenever I upload an event, I should expect that event to move through our processing system just like an event that was collected from our SDK. So it's available in every place you would expect an event collected via the SDK. Last, the other point is that item and cost data are applied retroactively, and user and event data are going forward. The reason that is because user data and event data is by nature processing oriented. It uses our processing pipeline to manage that data, manage the state, and keep it consistent over time, versus item and cost data can be used both in processing time and at time of query. And so basically it does. We use this data whenever it is applicable. We don't hide this data. Like I said before, it's generally applicable everywhere where you would expect it to be. And so item cost data can be applied retroactively, and so it is. User and event data cannot, and so it is not. And with that, I will pass it off to Kevin to talk about measurement protocol.
Thanks, Breen. Hi, everybody. I'm Kevin Lamb, and I'm a product manager on Google Analytics. And today we'll be talking about measurement protocol. Measurement protocol is a way for you to send your offline data to Google Analytics 4 on your app and web streams in a way that complements the data that you're already collecting with your client-side tags. To put this in perspective, let's use an example. So let's say we're the Google Merchandise Store, and we want to measure a user journey that starts on our website and ends in a store. And so more concretely, what this means is, let's say a user visits the website, signs in, logs in with their Google account. It starts to browse the various products that are on our website, picks an item that they're interested in and adds to their cart. But they don't complete the transaction at that moment. Instead, they're interested in playing with the tool or asking a sales rep for more information. So later on, they go into our storefront, meet with people, play with it, and decide that it's the perfect tool for them and their family. And so they go ahead and make that purchase. Now, typically, if you're using GTag on your website, you'll be able to measure those first couple transactions and user interactions on your site, but you're going to miss out on a lot of key information, including the major conversion that happens at the end. And that's where Measurement Protocol fits in. It helps you bring that offline information that doesn't happen and that isn't observable on your site or your app into Google Analytics 4 so that you can complete that user journey and that entire perspective. So with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about how to actually set this up within the new GA4. To get started, you want to first set up your GA4 property and create an app or web stream, whatever fits your business needs. Then, what's unique about Measurement Protocol is that you're going to want to generate an API secret. Now, this API secret was purpose-built for GA4 as a way to authenticate the source of information to ensure and to provide you additional benefits that prevent spam and to help protect your data within the property. And the last step is to then start to send the data using the Measurement Protocol API. So let's talk a little bit about the actual data structure, and then I'll walk you through a live example of how to send that data into the merchandise store. When you're sending data to Measurement Protocol, you're sending it as an HTTP post request. So the first part is the URL. Within the URL, you're going to look up and provide an API secret that we just talked about. And the second piece is you need to designate the destination. So in other words, which data stream are you sending the information to? And that's going to be either by providing the measurement ID for a web stream or an app ID for an app stream. Now, the second important part is the actual data payload itself. Within the JSON file, you're actually going to send us, first and foremost, either a client or an app instance ID that is collected through GTag or the SDK, and that's reflective of the user interactions that happen online. The second piece is then the event metadata. And so this is all the information about the key interactions and the context in which all the user engagement has happened. And the last piece is an optional piece. You can also send us user properties through Measurement Protocol. Okay, so now let's take a look at what this looks like within the Google Merchandise Store. So here we have the Merchandise Store's Google Analytics 4 property. Although it's already set up, I'll walk you through what that can look like within admin. And so to get there, on the lower left-hand side of my screen, I'm going to go to admin. And then within the property settings, you'll see that I have data streams. And here we already have the Google Merchandise Store's web stream set up. Now, the next step is to generate that API secret. To do so, you want to go into the streams details. And if you scroll down, you'll see a feature for Measurement Protocol API secrets. When I click that, you'll get a table with a list of the various API secrets that you've set up. And keep in mind that you can create multiple ones here, and it's very easy to do. All you have to do is click Create, give it a nickname, and then once I click Create, Google Analytics 4 will generate a brand new secret for me. Now, before I move on, I do want to show you a fantastic tool that we have, which is our dev site. Because as we think about building out that actual payload to send over Measurement Protocol, there's a lot of mechanics that we have to think about. So if I actually go to our dev site, we have an entire site with instructions on how to set up Measurement Protocol. And so let's take a really fast walkthrough of what's here. On the landing page, you'll see that there's a high-level overview of what Measurement Protocol is, some of the use cases that can be supported, as well as an architectural overview of how the data flows between Measurement Protocol and some of our client-side tags. You'll also find on this website key instructions on how to send the data over the post mechanism, including instructions for whether you're using web with gtag.js or apps with our Google Analytics 4 Firebase SDK. And this includes some of the information we talked about earlier, including how to set up the URL parameters, the JSON body, and much more. There's also information on how to verify your implementation. I would highly encourage you to take a look at all of these details after watching this video. Now, to get to how to actually send the data, what I'm going to do is illustrate how to do so with a nifty tool that we have called an event builder. So on the lower left-hand side, if you go to Event Builder under Demos and Tools, our team has built this great tool to allow you to set up and not only simulate how to send data, but also verify a payload and then actually send it to a property of your designation. And so for today with the merchandise store, we're going to start to key in some of this information. So the first thing we're going to want to do is provide that API secret, which we were able to get and just generated right now. So if I were to go here, copy that, I can copy that API secret right now. For the measurement ID, that is going to pertain to the web streams ID. And so to get there, I'm going to close out the API secret. And on the web stream details, you'll see that I have a measurement ID. Now keep in mind that this is the one starting with G dash and not the stream ID. So in the event builder, let's copy that over here. So next we're going to fill in the client ID. And for today, I'm just going to put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But generally, you're going to want to grab a client ID from your G-tag implementation. Now, the next piece of information is actually optional. If I were to have a CRM system with a user ID for that customer, I would fill that in at this point in time, but we're going to go ahead and skip that. And the next part is one of the most important pieces, is I'm going to start to set up the event information within that JSON. So for today, let's use an event called in-store purchase. The next part is a timestamp, which is optional. If I were to provide this, it would give me the ability to precisely tell GA4 at what point in time this activity happened. I'm going to skip this and allow the product to fill that in for me using the current timestamp. So at this time, we're going to set up parameters to contextualize the event that we just created. So for simplicity, we're going to use custom param with a value of custom. And if I were to do so, I can also set up things like user properties and other parameters. But for simplicity, we're going to keep with just this. And you'll see that if I scroll down, the event builder has compiled all that information for me and handily set up both the URL piece as well as the JSON piece. And at this point, what I want to do is validate this using the tool. So if I were to click validate event, this is great because now I can see that everything that I've provided to the tool looks correct and is ready to send to GA. Other options here include the ability to share the link with my colleagues or to copy this so that I can put it into maybe my backend systems. So when I send this over to GA, what I want to do typically is go over to the real-time report and see if I can find that information to make sure that not only is it well structured, but that the product has received information and is able to process it. Where if I scroll down, I will see an event count card. Now here, if we scroll through, we'll see that the in-store purchase, and that's fantastic because I see the in-store purchase event that was sent over with the custom parameter that I set up. And so when I click into that, that's fantastic. I see the custom parameter, the event, and everything looks to be set up perfectly. And so at this point, what I can do is think about how to productionize this and do this at scale. So with all of that in mind, let's talk a bit about potential issues that you may run into and how to think about addressing those. So what are some of the things that you want to think about when you're setting up measurement protocol? The first thing is that if you're not receiving any information at all within GA4, you may want to check your URL parameters to make sure that not only is the API secret accurate, but that you're sending it to the right destination, meaning that the measurement ID as well as the app ID are correct. Now, if you are starting to see some information, but you're seeing, say, gaps, like for instance, if some of the events are not showing through, but some are, then that's when you really want to hone in on the JSON structure. So you want to look at not only are the events well-formed, meaning the name, the length, but also the parameters. You're not using any of the restricted event names or parameters that we don't allow. Another common issue that we see customers facing is that they may not actually get the information as when they're expecting it to. So things to check here are whether you're providing a timestamp that maybe is outside of the allowed window of our feature, or perhaps GA4 just simply hasn't processed that information yet, but in due time it will, and it'll reconcile on a daily basis. The last thing that a lot of customers face is if you're using Google Analytics with, say, an ads product and you're using it to measure your user acquisition campaigns, sometimes you may observe that you're missing some information. That could be due to the fact that your IDs may have mismatches. Now, as mentioned earlier, measurement protocol is a way to complement and augment the information that you're collecting through your app or your web tags. So what the product does is it'll actually look up the required GCLID or device identifiers from your client streams and provide that and enhance it with your and use that to enhance your measurement protocol data. So make sure, again, this ties back to the earlier points, that your measurement ID and your app IDs are correct, that your client and app instance IDs are all correct, because those are key pieces of information that Google Analytics 4 uses to really enrich the data that you send over measurement protocol. So with all of that in mind, let's do a little quick wrap up and summarize everything that we've talked about. So first thing is that server-side collection is a great tool when you're not able to implement a robust client-side tag. So this is where data import and MP really shine, because there are often cases, whether it's because you have data that's not available real-time to send through one of those tags, or if there's data that's offline, such as from a store visit, that you don't have readily available, you can take that information, package it up, and send it through these mechanisms. It's important to also think about how data import and measurement protocol differ or are the same. So while they're both different ways to bring offline information into GA4, data import is a great tool that provides a simple UI that allows you to import a file into GA4 and to also schedule that information. Now, where measurement protocol becomes maybe a better solution for you is if you have a more advanced use case or need a programmatic way to send this information on a more recurring basis or live information through a steady data stream. And so this is fantastic when you have another online system that you want to pipe in and integrate with Google Analytics. In closing, I want to thank you again for taking your time to watch this video. As a reminder, this is just one part of a larger series offered by our Google Analytics 4 team. Now, if you want more information, there's a lot more information on our Help Center article, so I would encourage you to take the time to go out there and read more about what this product has to offer. And if you're a GA360 customer, reach out to your account representative for more information on how to get more out of your GA4 offerings. Thank you for taking the time to join us today.